Hi, so my talk is about consciousness, attention, and intelligence. And it is a pleasure to deliver this talk at the Diverse Intelligence Summer Institute. I will start with some remarks about evolution. Evolution, of course, matters a lot in discussions about biology, genetics, and intelligence. But in the context of discussing capacities like consciousness, attention, and intelligence, a key question is, are these really independent capacities, or are they different types of cognition, or you can even call them styles of cognition? And of course, there might be an ambiguity here, a conceptual ambiguity or a theoretical type of ambiguity, because these might not be monolithic capacities. Many kinds of attention exist, and this is a pretty uncontroversial finding in psychology. And of course, there are also many kinds of intelligence. This is also uncontroversial. In fact, there may be a very tight connection between attention and intelligence, and that's a point I want to explore here. On the other hand, it is quite controversial to say that there are various kinds of consciousness. At most, people distinguish along the lines of Ned Block's paper between access consciousness and phenomenal consciousness, but in general, people assume that consciousness is a single type of phenomenon or a single capacity. And here, I think studies in animal cognition are extremely important to tease these capacities apart and to test whether these claims are really uncontroversial or not. Another area where that can serve as a test ground for this investigation is the current research on artificial intelligence. Turing, for example, Alan Turing, in his pioneering paper of 1950 on machine intelligence, already pointed out that consciousness is not the right kind of capacity for intelligent systems and that it's not necessary for intelligence. He called consciousness actually solipsistic. And we also know that brain evolution and the anatomy of the brain went through various stages of reorganization and refinement and repurposing of different areas. And this seems to entail that these capacities, attention, intelligence, and consciousness, were mixed and remixed at some point, and that there is a relation. So we need to also try to investigate how these capacities are related at the anatomical or neural correlate level, which of course is something that is been happening and being investigated for the last decades. What I want to emphasize in this talk is something that doesn't receive as much attention as the neural correlates of these capacities or the general theoretical approaches to them, and whether they evolve at different stages, which is the role of motivation. And what I want to argue is that different kinds of motivation and needs for different styles of cognition are crucial to understand the development of these capacities. And these are motivations, for example, for learning, meta learning, or learning how to learn, which again is a topic in artificial intelligence, but has been a crucial topic in epistemology and psychology, and motivations for understanding and empathizing with others. And another thing I want to emphasize is that attention, all types of attention, can be understood as a fundamental cluster of epistemic capacities, that there's something deeply epistemic or knowledge producing about attention. And the contrast I want to draw is that attention may provide most of the knowledge we have that is relevant for intelligence, and consciousness, of course, is going to be relevant, but there's going to be a motivational difference. And again, here I'm thinking about Turing's statement that consciousness, particularly what some philosophers call phenomenal consciousness, or what is it like to experience pain. Also, people say the painfulness of pain, or the joyfulness of happiness, that is not really necessary, even though it can give insights into other realms of cognition and diversify intelligence, is not essential for many kinds of intelligence. So a first preliminary proposal is that diverse intelligences should be understood, this is a normative claim, this is a conceptual claim. They should be understood in terms of diverse types of attentive agencies. Agency is going to be a key term in this talk. Agencies and motivations to satisfy needs. And these are not going to be just any general needs, but the needs of an agent. At the agent level, this will be cross-modal integrated attention routines that are going to constitute epistemic agency as opposed to other types of agency like moral or aesthetic agency. But that hopefully will be clarified as I go along. So now talking about agency in terms of intelligence and needs, moving on to a separate topic here, where I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into how artificial intelligence can serve as a testing ground for these ideas. Current approaches to artificial intelligence, they all emphasize some kind of attention integration. They never really address the issue of motivation, except in terms of the idea of probabilities and rewards, but not really in terms of internal, kind of more homeostatic or need-driven motivation. And that's going to be key to what I'm going to say about intelligence. And so, for example, just this is not supposed to be a completely thorough list, but it is an illustration of the current research. There's an approach of, we can call it an emergence approach, where the process, the algorithmic deep learning or machine learning mechanism through different techniques that are being used is black boxed or just runs independently. And then the hope is that whatever the mechanism is doing or the program is doing, it will scale up and satisfy functional constraints that are associated with intelligence. And this is roughly by extension. This is a philosophical term. By extension means that the results of the decision making or the problem solving will be equivalent to some measure of equivalence to human or animal cognition results for decision making and problem solving. And literally just the results. And we will not know if the AI system literally went through the same steps or the same mechanisms of cognition that are associated with human and animal intelligence. On the other hand, there's also the so-called symbolic or old approach to artificial intelligence that consists in associating capacities with mostly conceptual capacities, symbolic capacities, built-in rules for interpretation of meanings, and so on. Here, the idea is that these capacities are essential for meta-learning or for learning how to learn, because, of course, you need inferential generalization to know roughly what is it salient in the environment that will help you learn more things in a much more rapid way. And famously and importantly, children are extremely good at this. These are, of course, complex forms of inference, like deduction, induction, abduction, and analogical reasoning for relevance rules. In philosophy, this is sometimes called rule following. There's criticisms against this idea, but roughly the general idea is that this is not merely by extension that we arrive at the same results for decision making and problem solving, is that it's intentionally equivalent. Namely, they're about the same contents and about the same rules. And of course, there are hybrid models where some type of core knowledge for symbolic content is assumed, and then there are heuristics that are more emergent and more extension driven for inference or for attention. Again, this list is not supposed to be exhaustive, but a key question I want to ask is, what would make any of these systems, assuming that they're all good or that one of them is to be preferred over the other, what will make any of them an agent? And this is a very important question because we never attribute, and this is something that I'll argue in the next few minutes, we never attribute intelligence just to systems or to events. We attribute intelligence to agents and their capacities. And this is for a very good reason, because this idea of agency is associated with responsibility. Agents are a unity of thought and purposeful action that understands and evaluates her needs and in the context of the environment. So a comparative and interdisciplinary project across actual and possible intelligences fundamentally depend on an answer to this question concerning agency. Because, to slightly repeat, agency is a source of control, which is an important issue in artificial intelligence, and control over your mental life is important for becoming a responsible epistemic agent. Otherwise, we will be projecting our capacities anthropocentrically to systems that are not really agents. So, moving on to approaches to intelligence, that require agency. I mean, the point that I want to make is that any approach to intelligence should require agency. Uh, what we have now, for example, in artificial intelligence, are multiple, maybe not necessarily incompatible, however, poorly integrated approaches to what agency is. Uh, there may be a risk that we're being too anthropocentric by insisting on agency, but what I want to argue is that as long as we're focusing on needs, the needs of an agent, that will help us define the motivations of the agent and what makes that agent intelligent given the environment and the problems the agent needs to solve. And of course, this could include artificial intelligence, animals, or any other type of intelligence. So the previous approaches to artificial intelligence have advantages and disadvantages, but all share the same problem that they don't fit into a coherent picture, and agency can help a lot here. And this is a general lesson about what intelligence is. It creates coherence in terms of the needs of an agent. So a second proposal is that intelligence is the successful and contextually adequate satisfaction of the needs of an agent. Only agents are intelligent in this account. And these are all not just a bunch of unorganized needs. They fall into a hierarchy of needs. This is an idea that comes from the Lama tree, but of course, Maslow explored it, and Freud, in a way, talked about this when he addressed the issues of drives and urges. Even in the Soviet Union, the so-called activity theorists really emphasized the role of needs and motivation. And so the idea is that there's this hierarchy of needs is going to be crucial to understand the types of intelligence and the range of general intelligence an agent has. Weak way of claiming a way of presenting this as a sort of weaker claim is that needs unify and integrate in combination with attention routines as solutions to problems. The hierarchy, for example, between bottom-up and top-down attention may be interpreted accordingly. A stronger claim, which is, I think, what I want to argue for, is that capacities for concept acquisition, inferential reasoning, and other capacities that are essential for human-level intelligence, like representational and semantic capacities, presuppose the needs of an agent in a specific environment. These capacities make no sense without these needs. So now, moving on to not only the hierarchy of needs, but the types of needs that an agent has, an intelligent agent has. Some may seem initially inconsequential, but the diversity of needs in itself is interesting. And as I go through this list, you will see that there's something really deeply important about this. This is not just a trivial classification problem. So on the one hand, living organisms have metabolic needs to stay alive. This includes obviously plants and all sorts of life on Earth. I'm calling them metabolic. They're very complicated, of course. They're related to cognition, but roughly speaking, their purpose is to sustain life. Then there are needs that are associated with conscious motivation and empathic needs. These needs, I think, are the needs that are deeply associated with consciousness. And they entail a certain valence, namely a structure of what's good and what's bad on a very basic emotional level. Then there are cognitive and representational needs concerning the accuracy of stimuli, the causal structure of the environment, the accuracy conditions for past and future representations for long and short-term planning. There are also cognitive and emotional social needs. They all entail a certain kind of attentional motivation and the need for the proper integration of representational needs. They all seem to somehow fit together, and they need to fit together in order to specify a certain kind of autonomy and freedom that the agent has in order to satisfy her needs independently. Here, a speculation is that the transition to language, human level language, and not only animal communication, and complex communicative motivational needs presuppose a certain type of pre-social behavior and joint attention that is also deeply associated with motivations. So, to recapitulate, this hierarchy of needs include the need to survive, the need to engage empathically, to communicate and to represent the environment, and they all are very diverse, but they fit together into a coherent picture when you understand the type of agent that has these needs and has the motivation to satisfy them. Now, with respect to the topic of life, and needs, of course, are deeply associated, and one may say, and Bowden, Putnam, and Jonas have expressed this view that without life you cannot have intelligence. What I want to say about this is that agency is what is fundamental for the organization and integration of needs, and also for the autonomous solution of multiple hierarchically organized needs and problems. Here, the relation between consciousness and attention can be understood in terms of automation, biological, cognitive, unconscious, inferential, but not phenomenally conscious, which, according to some authors, is the majority of our cognition. Then there's conscious, effortful attention that includes the voluntary, vigilant, top-down routines of an agent that is monitoring explicitly the satisfaction of needs. And then conscious, effortless attention that involves a kind of motivation that is highly skilled and finely tuned with a multiplicity of attention routines. And for review, you can consult this book that I co-author on consciousness and attention from 2015. There's a sense of familiarity once these needs are integrated, namely, once an agent is dexterous, and there's a kind of epistemic dexterity, but also a moral and aesthetic kind of dexterity, then the agent will be familiar with how to solve problems and have also a valence structure for when things are going right or wrong. And this hierarchy of needs is essential for the attentive foregrounding and backgrounding of information. So again, motivation and attention are going to be fundamental. So finally, I want to conclude with some programmatic proposals. We need to highlight the importance of unconscious processing and its complexity. Attention and vast amounts of cognitive needs are processed unconsciously. We need to emphasize also that needs are grounded in evolution and biology, that the diversity of intelligence entails a diversity of needs for autonomy, agency, and cognitive control, that agency, control, trust, and responsibility are all cases that may entail a certain kind of risk when things don't go right, and this might be important for AI development. Risk and trust should be associated with motivation and needs. Simulating intelligence might be risky in some cases, but this seems different in the case of emotions, and this is something that also needs to be explored. In any case, needs are a source of unity in cognition. They're a source of unity in agency, knowledge, and understanding, in the unity of action and truth, and they provide the basis of a normative dimension of cognition for morality, aesthetic, and epistemology. There are some challenges that are cultural and organizational that could be understood as the politics and cybernetics of developing artificial intelligence. We're already seeing this. We saw it in the Soviet Union and the US. We're currently seeing it with respect to China and Europe. And since determining who is intelligent or what counts as intelligence is a form of considerable social power, diversifying and constructing intelligence, individual and collective, is an essential political endeavor associated with informational and social justice. We need to prioritize that the diversity of styles of cognition and mentality be part of a broader program to prevent the polarization and nationalization of the distribution and production of knowledge. And to conclude, the commodification of knowledge or language and empathic engagement also should be prevented. This should be part of the diversity of intelligence uh, programmatic way of understanding agency and needs. And a diversity of intelligence should not entail a fragmentation of knowledge. And I think this is deeply related to human rights and the democratic access to information. Thank you very much.